Hello everybody, it's me, Corbin, and today I wanted to talk about basically just anything on my mind, so this might seem a little spontaneous or rambly. I might lose track of thought, switch the topic very rapidly, so, I'm sorry. It might come across, a little ADHD, but
And I'll be popping in periodically too. Corbin wanted me to kind of contribute any thoughts I had while I'm editing it, so that's what I'll do as well.
I've just been thinking a lot about the state of politics, maybe just in America. I don't know about the world, but a disconnect I feel with a lot of people, and how I'm really uncertain about the direction the country is going in. Sometimes I feel optimistic about it, sometimes I feel really pessimistic about it.
I understand that completely. It's really hard not to be cynical a lot of the time. I mean, hell, that's why my avatar that I had Corbin draw for me on my channel has me dressed as the comedian, because I relate to kind of the cynicism of the comedian, which I know might sound cringe as fuck. But it is hard to try and not be cynical in this day and age.
It all just really depends. There's so much going on. I think the philosophy of the world is rapidly changing. Maybe the first thing I should talk about is Donald Trump and the problems that I have with, the things that I've liked about Donald Trump in the past and why I don't really like him anymore. I don't know if I'd say I hate Donald Trump. And I don't want to say that I think he's the worst. He's not the worst option we could have had.
Yeah, I mean, look, I obviously agreed with a lot of what he ran on and what he stood for, and I liked a lot of what he did in his first term, and there was some stuff early on in this term that I was liking, but I've been pretty massively disappointed, and as I said in a previous video on my channel, I think the Trump train has completely derailed. I don't really know if there's any going back from this. There's a lot of problems. He definitely seems compromised, but we'll get more into that in the video.
He's not... I don't want to seem ungrateful for the good things that he is doing, but things could be a lot worse.
I mean, yeah, the issues that I have with him are issues that would have happened no matter who else would have won. Any other politician would have done all this shit. The part that makes it fucking disappointing is that it's the guy who's supposed to be an outsider, the guy who's supposed to be different than the others, the guy who showed himself to be against the system, allegedly, for his first term, and while he was running, and in the media, and everything. It's disappointing to see that guy you think he's going up against the machine, to seemingly become a part of it, to become enveloped in it, to become corrupted by it, to become just another cog.
Donald Trump, I think, sort of ran more as a nationalist than he did as your typical Republican. He seemed to be against globalism, and I mean, really, he would say things like America first, make America great again, very nationalist kind of rhetoric, comparable to, Pat Buchanan. I don't know, I feel like that's clearly not who he is. We can see that very clearly now, that he's not a nationalist, and that he's much more willing to work with the system than a lot of his voters had believed, and he clearly doesn't like his voters. He clearly thinks his voters are stupid for caring about, not just the Epstein list, but the fact he's going back on everything. He's going back on this. He said that we would have no more wars. This peace rhetoric, which I would say it's fair to say that Donald Trump is not a symbol of peace. But they're saying that they want to give. I heard before that they were thinking about giving him a Nobel Peace Prize for bombing Iran.
It's not really that shocking. They gave Obama Nobel Peace Prizes when he was literally bombing U.S. citizens in Yemen, which we weren't even at war with. So it's not that surprising. But on top of that, Trump himself ran as the anti-war guy, right? He's like, I'm going to end the war in Russia and Ukraine. I'm going to end all this stuff in the Middle East. I'm just going to wrap it all up day one, right? And now he's funding Ukraine again. Or at least toying with the idea. He says that he's going to start giving money to Ukraine again and just start fucking funding that. It's a complete 180 on what he said he was going to do with Ukraine. What the hell?
Because that was such a bold decision. I mean, oh yeah, Truman bomb Japan. That was such a bold decision that for 2,000 people we had to kill like 200,000 people. So brave. It just seems insane to me. Why would we bomb Iran under the suspicion that they could in the future have nuclear weapons, as if that increases the threat of nuclear war if they have nuclear weapons? I mean, Russia, China, India have nuclear weapons, but we should be afraid of Iran for some reason.
Not only that, but North Korea also has nuclear weapons. Like, a lot of countries have nuclear weapons. A lot of them we are hostile with, too. So, why the fuck does a tiny little country in the Middle East, why is that a thing? And also, like, when they actually bombed those sites, there doesn't seem to be any, like, radiation and shit you would think from destroying a nuclear site. Like, there's a bunch of shit that doesn't add up that definitely leaves you scratching your head and being like, what the fuck?
As if Iran poses some sort of global threat to the world. I don't get it. It just seems like a Zionist thing. It just seems like it's for Israel, not for the global. It doesn't seem like a global threat to me.
And let's be clear, we knew that Trump was like pro-Israel and stuff. It was something you kind of grit your teeth at and got annoyed with. But there were signs that maybe he was gonna shake it up. Like, there were things where he expressed anger with Netanyahu and disagreements, and there were things that were kind of showing like a small glimmer that maybe he wouldn't be so invested in that foreign nation, right? I think all of us knew that that was just kind of going to happen to a degree. We just didn't know to what degree. And I think that it's been to like a much more frustrating degree than a lot of us had hoped for. Like, obviously a lot of the like white nationalist and much more cynical black-pilled people would have said, yeah, this is obviously what was going to happen. And fair enough. I myself, again, have been pretty cynical for a while. I've been, deep in conspiracy theories since 2012. I'm not exactly one who thinks that politics is all rah-rah go and that things are going to all be all right. But there was a little shred of hope, and a lot of that seems to have been crushed, and it's really frustrating.
And people will say, well, they say death to America. I mean, Russians say death to America. I mean, China says death to America. I mean, a lot of these other countries hate us. We know the entire world hates America. So why are we singling out Iran for hating America? Why do we hate Muslims in particular when, if there's a threat of immigration in our country, maybe, things are different in Europe, but in America, I don't think Muslims are really a big threat to us. There's much worse immigrants coming to the country, and Donald Trump wants to bring in Chinese and Indians, so how is that? Is that good for America?
And I myself am very anti-immigration, like, more so than a lot of people even, like I don't even think we should be bringing in Europeans. I think we absolutely need to just close down, at least for like a decade, to reassess. Like, immigration itself, I'm pretty wholesale against. I think in Europe, since Corbyn isn't as aware of this, maybe Europe actually does have a pretty bad Muslim problem with, like, acid attacks and people getting run over with trucks and, like, rape gangs and stuff like that. And so we don't want to become that either. But I also don't think it is good to import all these Chinese and Indians and stuff like that into the workforce and into the country and affect the culture in such a way, because it's always going to affect the culture and the economy and everything, and it's going to just absolutely fuck with everything. And I think that we need to, at the very least, take a break from it. I, again, think that we should focus on our own country, but again, you get my point.
It's not really a surprise that Donald Trump would care more about the millionaires and billionaires in this country than he would care about working class people. I don't think that part is a surprise, but him going back on his nationalist rhetoric and him really working on behalf of the Zionists and the people that were against Trump, really, like Ben Shapiro and Charlie Kirk, people that didn't support Trump in the beginning. Even one of Donald Trump's lowest voter bases was Jewish people. I mean, they didn't want to vote for Trump. They called him a Nazi and said that he was a threat to Jewish people. But now they're all very gung-ho for him. You see Ben Shapiro and Charlie Kirk are super pro-Trump now because of him bombing Iran, but also because of him not releasing the Epstein list. They love that too. It's pretty suspicious.
And with the Epstein thing, that was a pretty fucking big one. Like, something that's super frustrating about this is, number one, obviously the left has been saying for a long time, Trump's on the list. And there's a lot of people on the right who are like, no, he's not. But it's like, this ain't a good look. This is absolutely giving validation to that, right? And no matter which way you spin it, there's no good way out of this. I don't think he's on the list, per se. I don't know. He very well might be, right? And he's not doing himself any fucking favors. And the only reason I even hold out that little tiny benefit of the doubt saying I don't think he is because he ran so hard on it. Now, maybe you could argue, since, he's known for the 4D chess trademark, maybe that's all that was, right? Maybe he's like, well, if I'm so vocal about it at the start, they won't even suspect, right? And maybe that's kind of the game they're going for, right? I don't fucking know. I'm not making any claims to that. I don't think he's on it just because they seem to be making progress, and then something happened, and then not only with that, but then he completely 180'd on everything. And that's why I'm like, I think he's compromised. I think they either threatened him, they bought him, they blackmailed him with something, again, whether it be something to do with the list, or something else they got him on, or something they made up even. There's so many things it could be. Like, that's the frustration, is the uncertainty of not knowing about it. But that's the thing with these whole clandestine operations, is you're not supposed to fucking know, and it's really, really frustrating that these evil groups are going and carrying out these things.
That the Zionist politicians are the ones that love him most right now. And, the neoconservatives are very much in love with him. When most people, I think, that voted for Trump, voted for him because they thought he was going to be more of a paleoconservative. They believed he was going to be more of a nationalist, America First. Which, America First, if you don't know, America First was a term that's always been considered anti-Semitic in America. If you look, like Dr. Seuss would make cartoons portraying America First politicians as Nazis.
Yeah, it's pretty fucking crazy that just the concept of a country wanting to put its own interests first is somehow considered immediately against the interests of another country. Very curious. Like, it's like that other country has to be first, right? Because, again, they have a lot of influence, let's just say that, right? They're definitely very, very involved at the core and roots of our government, and it's frustrating as all fuck, because I don't think we should be involved with, like, any of these foreign nations in this way. I think basically we should just have trade and travel and shit like that. That's how I think we should cooperate with other countries. I don't think they should have their hooks ingrained so deep, but it goes back so far into history. It's such a hard and frustrating thing.
Henry Ford was one of the earlier people to use the term America First before Pat Buchanan even used the term. It's weird that Donald Trump used a lot of this kind of rhetoric if it wasn't his intention. I would say the case now would be either that he's threatened or, he's paid for. That he's paid for by these lots of these Zionists. So that's really where his interest is. And this was probably inevitable because he was always going to get into these Zionist circles. It was kind of an inevitability. While I like what ICE is doing, I think that getting illegals out of the country is one of the most important things that Donald Trump could be doing. Because under Biden, 4 million illegal immigrants came in. That's a pretty big deal. People that come into this country, if the way they come into this country is illegally, then that means the first thing that they did as an American was commit a crime. The first thing that before anything else, they were criminals when they came in. Donald Trump himself even says that if people come in legally, it doesn't matter how many people come in. As many people that want to come in legally as possible is good in his eyes. I think that he's of the same idea of these other neoconservatives, that America is an idea and not a people, and that the people who were born in this country, or the people that have more ancestral roots in this country, not that I'm saying that matters. I understand that this is a country founded by immigrants, but I think people will use that argument dishonestly because they'll say, oh, well, this place used to belong to the Native Americans, and when we showed up, we killed the Native Americans and we took their land. They say this as an argument for why immigration is good, but if you view that as a bad thing, why would you use that as an argument for why immigration is good? It's very bizarre. It's like, it's only okay if it's happening to white people. It was wrong because it happened to Native Americans, but if it's us, like our culture is replaced and we're killed, that it's not as important. By this same logic, the Native Americans should have just let us come in. The Native Americans shouldn't have been violent towards us, and they should have let us just have their land. If you really believe that.
The whole nation of immigrants thing is such a tired argument for me. Because first off, it was nearly 250 fucking years ago. Like, first off, the Native Americans, I think, had every right to defend their own land and things like that, but they lost. And the thing is people say, oh, it's a nation of immigrants. Yeah, but that doesn't mean you just bring everybody in. Because the immigrants that came here in the first place were a subgroup. They were one culture within the UK that didn't like the current culture in the UK, pretty much for religious reasons. You know, the Church of England and things like that. And so it was a lot of like-minded, mostly related, and communal people, right? It was like a community, a large community of people that came over to the US to found it. And again, the natives had every right to defend themselves too. And I do think there was a lot of problems in their culture, because not all cultures are equal either. There was, you know, human sacrifice and all sorts of other fucked up shit. And there was aggression on both sides quite a bit. It's just obviously when it came to the matter of force, they were outmatched by the settlers. But, again, that's so far in the history that I'm tired of hearing that fucking argument. Again, I'm not saying that everyone who is here now should be gone that came here legally and all that, right? The illegal ones, yeah, kick them the fuck out. Like I said, I don't care as much about the status of legal versus illegal, but on a matter of principle, you obviously can't just you can't oust everyone at once, right, who came here on the correct terms and stuff like that. So although I think that legal immigration is bad as well, just because it dilutes the culture, and it affects the workplace and the economy and so many other things, even though I think that doesn't mean I think we need to uproot everybody, because obviously all of our families go back a few generations. Some have been here a long time, others not as many. But obviously I think that settlers and people who immigrated here in the past, it was a little bit different because there was a purpose, right? Because another problem I have with modern day immigration is there's no expectation to assimilate, right? There's no expectation to actually become part of the American culture. Immigrants that came over here in the past actually did. For instance, my great-grandfather came over here from Italy, and once his parents died, he refused to ever speak Italian again, which is why I don't know Italian. And the reason for that is he's like, we're in America, we're speaking English here. That is the language here. I don't need to speak Italian anymore. I only did it here to translate for my parents, pretty much. That was his whole thing. And so, I think that, that kind of thing is very different than the people who come here from Venezuela, and they're just claiming asylum and then sending money back home so that they can eventually fuck off back there and basically have just played the system. Because that's a lot of what we have now, is just leeching on the system rather than actually trying to be a part of the culture. And on top of that, they don't even take the fucking time to learn the language. I don't think it should be legal to get a job in the US if you don't speak English. It's so fucking frustrating to have all these people that you're supposed to, like, guide or, like, direct if you're, like, a supervisor and things like that, and they don't understand what the hell you're saying. And that could be a safety issue, too. Like, let's say you're warning them about hazards in the workplace. Well, if they don't fucking understand you, they don't fucking understand you. It's really frustrating. So although I say I'm very, very anti-immigration, that doesn't mean I think that it was always and always will be bad. I think there have been good instances of it in the past. And I think that there are roots in certain things. And I think ones that assimilate here are better off than ones that don't. Like I said, like I've said in the past, I'd much rather have a bunch of Cubans that escaped from Castro coming over here, because they're very anti-communist and very much wanted to assimilate into the culture a lot more, and they're pretty based, as opposed to a bunch of fucking Europeans who are very, like, socialistic, pro-diversity, pro-multiculturalism in this day and age. Again, Europe has great roots and great history in the past. I'm not saying, oh, let's shit on Europe, because Europe had a great and storied history, and a lot of Europeans are sick of the fact that that's been diluted as well. But there are a bunch of normie Europeans that would just contribute to the problem. Again, I'm not even without empathy for illegal immigrants to a degree, but there's so much fatigue of it because it's so prevalent of a problem and so just overlooked, and you hear the same tired old arguments. Like, I'm not without empathy for these people, but at the same time, they're literally harming the country and society that I'm a part of. They're harming the economy. They're harming the way that the system is run. They're harming things like the vote count and census and stuff like that. Like, they are just a negative to it. Again, although I say, I am against even legal immigration to a degree, I think we need to crack down on that too, right? I'm pretty against immigration just wholesale. At the very least, we need to do something about the ones that are breaking the fucking law coming here in the first place. Again, I am very much against legal immigration too. Like I said, I cannot stress that enough. And again, I think that it is something we need to at least reassess. And there is contextual things, right? Like I said, ones that have assimilated, ones that have been here for generations, things like that, right? Like, I think that there is nuance to it, but it's so hard to have that discussion with all the fucking fatigue that we run into because it's treated with, like, such non-care. People just are fine with it and say, oh, no human is illegal. And it's like, dude, you're not understanding the big picture and why it's making the country, the economy, the culture, and everything else worse.
Like, I don't really believe in that ancestral land thing. Like, what Israel is doing, like, justifying all of this, all of these killings with sort of this, oh, this land was promised to us, or this land is ancestral to us. I mean, to me, that's the same as the kind of arguments the Nazis would use. The Nazis used the Othala rune. And what does the Othala rune mean? It means that ancestral land can be taken back at any time, that European land belongs to the Europeans. So I don't see how this rhetoric is different there. But Donald Trump doesn't really, he's going completely against his own voter base. I think people wanted him because mainly for the issue, they didn't want us to go to war. They didn't like these globalist issues. He ran on that. He ran on being America first and getting out of global conflicts. He's really just, the same as Bush or Reagan. He's not, what I would say a real conservative. I think the word paleo-conservative is kind of a redundant word, to say, oh, these people are ancient, is why they use the word paleo, to say, oh, these are ancient conservatives, their ideas are old and outdated. But that's what the whole point of conservatism is. If you don't believe that we should actually conserve the way things used to be, then you're not really a conservative. If you want to support this kind of global democratization, you can't really call yourself a conservative. And I have the problem with the Republican Party, that they are a party for bigger government. And a lot of people will say, no, it's the Democrats that are for bigger government. They're both for bigger government. They're the same, really, they're the same party. They're both for a democratic republic, and they're both for immigration. They're both for, the neocons are for abortion as well. The only thing that they want to conserve is money. The only thing that, to them, conservatism is just a purely economical thing. Doesn't really mean anything. America is just an idea. As long as you adopt this idea of liberty and freedom and capitalism or whatever, if you believe in these ideas, then that makes you an American.
Obviously, a lot of those ideas I like. For instance, I'm not really for democracy. Democracy is just a fallacy in general. A republic makes more sense because, it is layered and takes into account various different factors, such as, population-dense areas not having control of everywhere, right? So that New York and California aren't controlling everywhere, so that people in Wyoming still have a say, that kind of thing, right? But obviously it is still a very flawed system, and I'm not necessarily in favor of the way it is either. But obviously things like liberty and capitalism and freedom and these are things I like, right? These are concepts I like. But the problem is they're just platitudes, and there's no real value system behind it, and no real oomph to it. Like, there's no actual plan or anything like that either. And the type of capitalism we have isn't even like real capitalism. Like, I know it sounds cringe as hell. It almost sounds like a commie saying the whole communism thing hasn't been tried, but with a capitalist version, saying real capitalism hasn't been tried. I'm not even saying that. I'm just saying that right now, the way that it's structured with the incestuous relationship between corporations and the government is the problem. That's why the capitalism we have here isn't like good capitalism, right? Like it's not actually like free trade or anything like that, right? Like what it is it's just corporate cronies making, deals with the government for bailouts and shit, and having these cliques and this sort of inroute where they can pull up the fucking ladder so no one else can get it, and then they get a bunch of laws passed that they can avoid because they get bailouts from the government. So, again, the capitalism we have here isn't like actual, like, the way it should be with capitalism, because I'm very capitalist. I hate socialism in basically every form. But nevertheless, the kind we have isn't the way it's supposed to be. And that's the case with a lot of things. Insurance companies and things like that have deals with governments and shit like that that's very, like, bad. Like, no monopoly has ever existed without support from the state. And that's something that a lot of people overlook when they bitch about monopolies. And, it is good to bitch about monopolies, too, to a degree. I think if they arise naturally, it's going to be different than if the state helps them. Because, again, no monopoly is able to sustain itself without state support. But nevertheless, the problem is, these are platitudes. Just, my freedom, my capitalism. Like, there's not any actual, like, thought behind it. It's just platitudes, and that's the problem.
And Charlie Kirk himself even said that Israel matters as land because it is destined in the Bible, which it isn't. Israel in the Bible is referring to a person and the people under him. Israel is supposed to be like the church. It's not supposed to be a piece of land. In Israel as a state has only existed since the 40s. So this Christian argument to defend Israel is another just Zionist propaganda. It's dishonest.
Israel in the Bible referred to Jacob. Jacob was Israel. And then his children were the people of Israel, or the Israelites, right? That's what it was. It was very specific. Now, there was promised land and stuff like that in Exodus, right? But that was just to get them out of slavery and get them to prosperity. That doesn't mean the land itself is the part that is important. So that's the part that's really frustrating. And then if you take into account the New Testament, the church is supposed to be Israel, right? The people of the church are supposed to be the people of Israel. Not to mention, there were 12 tribes of Israel. Not just one, but for whatever reason, the one is the one that gets attention.
And, the Epstein list is a pretty big deal because, all these people were saying how important it was, and we knew that the Epstein list was real. Dan Bongino promoted the idea that this Epstein list was real, and now he's saying that it wasn't real.
Pam Bondi literally said she had it on her desk, ready to review.
Donald Trump is going back on so many things, and I don't want to seem ungrateful because I like that, that what ICE has been doing, and I like that he released the JFK files, and that he's done good things, but really he's doing so many things wrong that it doesn't really, how many things is he going to do wrong that the things that he has done that are good just don't matter anymore, He's still got a lot of time left to screw things up even worse, he's got several years left. How much is he going to go back on? How much is he going to change? And it just goes to show that politicians, they make all these promises that they can't possibly deliver. And they want to change the system, but the system is kind of just set the way it is. I don't think there is any change in it because it's all related to money, and that's all that really matters to these people. They don't really care about working class people or if real Americans are going to even exist 50 years from now. It's not really relevant. As long as in their mind the people that come in believe in American ideals, it doesn't really matter. And it's really bizarre that he would bomb Iran and then say that he wanted to give like millions and millions of dollars to Iran. I don't really understand what Donald Trump is thinking right now. You can never really know because he doesn't, it's not like he can be honest and tell us what his plan is, because that would mess up his plan. And you don't really know what he's going through as a president. You don't know who's talking in his ear, what his strategy is, because he doesn't want people to know what he's really doing, because that's the whole point of a real political strategy, isn't it? I mean, like Otto von Bismarck would write letters to Napoleon III and the Kaiser Wilhelm II, basically insulting each other because he wanted to start a war so that he can get more land. And I think that kind of just defined, I think real political strategy has defined modern politics, and it's become very Machiavellian. And you can never really know what politicians think. They can't be honest about anything, because that would reveal the strategy. So, it's all really a mystery. I think Pat Buchanan would have been a far better president. And a lot of people like Ronald Reagan and want another Ronald Reagan. I want another Nixon, if anything. I think Nixon, it was a better example of a Republican president.
I agree. There's a lot of stuff said about Nixon, and there's a lot of things he did I didn't agree with, too. But I think Nixon is easily, like, the most underrated president.
And I think that what conservative means doesn't really matter anymore, the same way that what fascism means doesn't really matter anymore. Fascism today it seems to just mean police brutality or authoritarianism. Words don't really seem to be clearly defined anymore. It's just bizarre, and I can't really wrap my mind around anything because everything has been so blurred, and our words have been so obscured, and the English language is like completely different than it was 50 years ago. And it seems like people are too scared of being offensive or seeming mean that they'll always compromise.
Absolutely. Like I said, words get twisted, manipulated, and weaponized in ways that make it hard to have a discourse, and then people shift goalposts of what's acceptable and what's not to try and demonize people and make it hard to hold a fucking conversation.
It's pretty worrying, and I don't know what... I mean, I'm really not in a position to say what is best for America, but we need to do what's best for the people that have lived here longer than anybody. The people that have real stake in this country are the people that should matter. And these immigrants that come into this country aren't coming here because they want to make our country better. And I know that it's like a cliche, the JFK thing, to say it's not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. But I think that's a statement that's true. These immigrants aren't coming here because they want to make this country better. They're coming here because they want what this country can do for them, right? They come here because it's a land of opportunity, and they want to make money, and they want to exploit us and do what's best for their families. And I don't blame them for that. I blame our government for letting them in. I don't have a problem with immigrants. I don't hate people from other countries. I respect other cultures. I don't hate people that are different from me. I actually love these other countries, and I love their cultures in a lot of ways, but I don't want America to be multicultural to that extent. I want America to be defined by the people that live here, not even just this American ideal or the American dream, but I think that we as Americans should define what America stands for, and not just the founding fathers, but the Puritans that came here originally, and even Italian and Irish immigrants that have been here much longer than these other immigrants, and even African Americans. I think that they have more of a say in this country than these immigrants coming in.
And I agree too, and I do think that other cultures do absolutely deserve to exist, and I love other cultures, and I do think there is a certain amount of appreciation you can have for other cultures, but you need to also be able to maintain your own culture in order to have that at all.
I think that this is detrimental to all of us. I think this is bad for Black Americans just as it is white Americans, and I think that our country is going in a very dangerous direction. But I think that you can see with the youth in this country, that there is a change. And there was even something Trump said that reminded me of a quote of Mussolini, that the ideals of the American youth are crystalline, or something like that. That the American youth are going to define this country in the future. But that's not going to happen if you just keep letting in immigrants from other countries. And I think that the young people are actually catching on to a lot of things, and I think the young people are going actually want what's best for this country, a lot of them.
And with all my cynicism, that is one thing that does give me some hope, is that young people are starting to change and starting to see the problems. Now, granted, I have my own issues and criticisms with young people, but I do think that there are some promising things you see with the youth of the country.
I think that a lot of the younger generations are actually more conservative than the older generations. The older generations want this sort of Zionist, globalist, neoconservative kind of government, and the younger people want a more nationalist, traditionally conservative Christian America. And I think that we really should let the young people decide what this country should be. That the young people that were born in this country and have not ancestral roots, but they do have stronger ancestral ties. They do have a better understanding of what this country represents than the illegals that are coming in. And not even just the illegals, but the legals that are coming in. I mean, there's legal Haitians where I live, and they don't give a shit about people around here. They're taking jobs from people and doing them worse than the people that were born here would do those jobs. You know, and they're inconsiderate of other people. They're rude. They think that that we owe them something. They don't speak the language. They don't care to learn the language, and they do half-assed jobs, or even they don't even do their jobs. And there's significant consequences for that. And even Indian workers. There's a lot of Indian workers around here too that don't care about Americans. They don't speak English very well, and they have the same problems of laziness. They don't want to help us, and they don't want to listen to us or work with us. And I've tried with people. I try being polite and understanding people, and but they don't respect me.
Yeah, that's true. There's a lot of them that just half-ass everything, too. It's really frustrating. And granted, I have met plenty of immigrants, both legal and illegal, who are good workers, and I actually like as people, too. But the overwhelming majority of a lot of them is that they just fucking don't care. They see it for just, like, they're using it. Like I said, it's a fucking system they can just milk and milk and milk and leech off of.
And I don't know, I don't want to live with these people. I want to live with people that are polite and nice. I want to live with my community. And the community around here, the people that really are from here, are really nice people. They're really polite. They wave to you. They will come over and want to help you. There's so many people that have tried to help me with my job. Everybody's always wanting to work with you and help you around here. That's from here. But these immigrants, they don't seem to care about anybody. And even these immigrant doctors, they don't seem to even care about their patients or listen to their patients. They're snobby assholes, and they'll make jokes at the expense of their own patients, and they're just rude people, and they half-ass their jobs too, and that's really bad. If you're a doctor and you're half-assing it, those are people's lives you're putting at risk. And there's serious problems here.
Yeah, we really do need to get back to a sense of community. There needs to be shared morals and a shared culture and a sense of giving a shit about each other. And it's really hard to have that when you're mass importing all these other people that don't give a shit and have different values.
And I don't think Donald Trump's going to fix that. He wants Chinese workers and Indian workers and things like that. I don't think Donald Trump really gives a damn about Americans. I think he only cares about him and his elite friends. It's really unfortunate. And, I partly saw this coming. I didn't think it would be this bad, but it was kind of just... If Donald Trump cared about America and he was a real nationalist, he would have never been elected president in the first place. He would have never made money in this country, because the only way you make money in this country is if you're a Zionist and you agree with the agenda that's being pushed. That's the only way you make it into government. That's the only way you make it, they make money in this country, is if you're willing to work with the people that are trying to subvert the culture and destroy the country. I mean, I even had a relative who's works in pharmaceuticals, I guess, and I heard him on the phone, and he was talking with these other pharmaceutical guys about how they need to change the culture, and that concerned me. Why are pharmaceutical companies wanting to change the culture? What does pharmaceuticals have to do with the culture? So that's pretty worrying. What is that? What's the connection between drugs and culture there? What are they wanting to change? It's pretty worrying, and I don't know. I can't wrap my head around what's going on fully, but I think we should be optimistic anyways, because look at the youth and what the youth are saying. The youth want nationalism. They want things to be better for their families, and they care about ancestry. They care about the people that have lived in this country longest, and I think that the youth in this country, I mean, inevitably they have to be the ones in power eventually, but the only chance that that's not going to happen is if we let in a lot of these immigrants, you know. But the boomers, they have to die eventually, you know. Eventually they have to die. They're getting old, and their control over the world is fading, and they know it is, and that's why they're afraid, and that's why they're pushing this propaganda more now than they've ever done before, is because they know that they're going to lose control, and they're scared.
It reminds me of a quote I heard from Michael Malice. I don't think it's actually one of his original quotes, and I might be paraphrasing slightly, but the quote goes something to the effect of, "If everything was under control, the propaganda wouldn't be necessary."
So be optimistic, because the people that are in power, the rich elites, know that we're going to get them, you know? They know that their world is going to end. That's why they're afraid about this Epstein list coming out. That's why they were afraid about the JFK files coming out, because they know that we can see what the agenda is, and we are against them. And a large part of this is the youth versus the old. And ironically, the youth want to return to an older, more traditional way of doing things, kind of ironically. I don't think it's kind of strange, the phenomenon that's happening, where the youth are more traditionalist and the older ones are the ones that are pushing for this global democratization and this immigration and these foreign wars, and the young people, you know, they just want to be left alone. They want to leave other people alone. And a lot of people will give shit to these white nationalists, but these white nationalists, you have to, I know that there's a lot of things that they say that I don't agree with either. I don't agree with white nationalism. I don't agree with segregation. But if you listen to the rhetoric, it's very different from the neoconservative rhetoric. The neoconservatives are very pro-war, and the neoconservatives are more racist than the white nationalists. The white nationalists have more respect for other cultures, and they don't want to go to war. They want to leave other countries alone. They want other races and countries to leave them alone. They want a mutual respect among other racial nationalist groups, whereas the neoconservatives want to kill Muslims for being Muslim. They want to destroy these Muslim countries, and they want a sort of global control. And nationalists don't want that. They don't want global control. They just want to be left alone and to have their own country. So, you know, you can call them extremists and you can hate them, but they're more on your side than the neoconservatives are. They care more about your well-being than these neocons that hate you. You just give them a break, you know, because a lot of these people are nicer people than you think, and they don't hate you, and they don't want you to die. They don't want to exterminate your race. All they want is to be left alone, and they don't want to be replaced. And whites are a minority in the world, and the neoconservatives aren't helping anything in that regard. They want the neoconservatives are just contributing to the problem of the replacement, and that new world order and things, and that's really all I wanted to say.